Okay, so we're going to look at another trinomial, and first we're going to check to see if it's a perfect square trinomial. So remember, we have two patterns. We either have a binomial sum squared or a binomial difference squared. In this example, if we want to see if we have a perfect square trinomial, we're going to look at our middle term and we see that it's minus 28. So if we are using one of these patterns, it's going to be the binomial difference. So the a minus b quantity squared. Now, when we look at our original problem, we see the first term is 2n squared and the last term is 98. Well, those aren't perfect squares. So you might think right away, this isn't a perfect square trinomial because those aren't perfect squares. But notice this has a GCF of 2. So before you do anything when you factor, you always want to check first and see if there's a GCF. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to factor out that GCF of 2. And what I have after that is n squared minus 14n plus 49. 49. That's a perfect square. So let's take a look at my first term and my last term. For my n squared, I want to ask myself what's being squared. And for 49, I also want to ask myself what was being squared. So to obtain n squared, it was just n. And to obtain 49, I had a 7. So I know that my first term and my last term are perfect squares. Now I have to check the middle term. So I multiply the n times the 7 and then I double it. And I get 14n. So that matches the middle term. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, what about the negative sign? Don't worry, that's why we use the formula. That'll come in just a second. So now I figure out my a and my b. So my a is n and my b is 7. So I'm ready to write my final answer. Just make sure you don't forget your GCF. So for my final answer, I begin with 2. And then I have the binomial n minus 7 quantity squared. Let's do the check. So I want to write out n minus 7 twice. And then I'm going to FOIL first. Before I do anything with that GCF, I'm going to FOIL. And now you'll notice when I combine the like terms in the middle, I get the n squared minus 14n plus 49 because I get the two 7n's, the minus 7n minus 7n, that's the double. And now if I distribute the GCF of 2, look at that. I get back to my original answer. So I know that 2 times the quantity n minus 7 squared is my final answer.